This is the weekly roundup on EAC News Channel. You look back at the past week in the Kingdom of Wonder, a very good evening. I'm Anthony Ellis and we start with Monday. Prime Minister Hun Sen has announced that the north of Cambodia will be considered the rising star of the north after development in the area has increased significantly. He has made this announcement while paying an inspection visit at the construction site of the new Siem Reap International Airport on Sunday. EAC News reporter Darshana Guchin has more.
While inspecting the site of the new Siem Reap International Airport, Prime Minister Hun Sen said that it was time to declare the north of the country as the rising star of the north, which includes the provinces of Siem Reap, Odar Minche, Kampong Thom, and a part of Previer Province. He said it was time to make this declaration because significant progress had been made in this area, particularly in connection between Phnom Penh and Siem Reap, and from Siem Reap to Banti Minche and Battambang provinces. He added that a lot has been invested in Siem Reap's buildings and infrastructure, including the new international airport, which has served to develop the north area.
Cá đại dương đặt tuần giang trán trôi tớiที่โรงแรมSiem Reapก่อสร้างโดยเหตุท่าราชนาสัมพันธ์ตรงดอลอโดยโครงที่โรงแรมได้ดักสัมพันธ์ในกลายนู้ยืงកំពុងតែសាងសង់នៅអាកាសយានដ្ឋានអន្តរជាតិខ្នាតយក្សនៅខេត្តសៀមរាបនេះដូច្នេះវាបម្រើឲ្យការអភិវឌ្ឍនៅតំបន់ឧត្តរដែលខ្លួននោះអាចគ្របដណ្ដប់ខេត្តសៀមរាបឧត្តរមានជ័យបាត់ដំបងកំពង់ធំហើយអាចប្រែកមួយនៅខេត្តព្រះវិហារគឺពូលខាងនេះ
The Prime Minister also clarified that Cambodia is divided into 3 poles: the capital city of Phnom Penh, which is the heart and central administration of the country; Pria Sihanouk Province, which is the sea tourism pole and the rising star of the southwest; and Siem Reap Province, which is the cultural tourism pole and the rising star of the north. He further added that in the coming days there will also be the announcement of the 4th pole, which will be the rising star of the northeast, comprising of the provinces of Kratche, Mondulkiri, and Ratanakiri and Stung Treng. Darshana Gauchan, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has announced that the Cambodian government will not allow Cambodia's heritage to lose its UNESCO World Heritage status, as the royal government of Cambodia will continue to adhere by UNESCO guidelines. He made this statement while speaking the inauguration ceremony of the official use of 38 roads in Siem Reap on Monday morning. EAC News reporter Deki Nin has more details.
During the inauguration ceremony of the official use of 38 roads in Siem Reap, the Prime Minister instructed real estate investor Kim Hieng to stop criticizing the authorities for not allowing the construction of skyscrapers in Siem Reap. He reiterated that the ban on the construction of skyscrapers in the province is to protect the World Heritage status of the Angkor area, as instructed by UNESCO's guidelines, which restricts the building of high-rise buildings in such close proximity. The Prime Minister stressed that it is not only in Siem Reap, but also other areas on the World Heritage list that are subject to the same rules. The Prime Minister further added that there is no shortage of real estate market areas in the country, so please do not go to the heritage registered area. He also urged UNESCO and its Cambodian heritage conservation parties not to worry about the guidelines being breached, as the government would not allow this to ever happen.
ទេកផាត់ពិភពលោកគឺភាសាអង់គ្លេសនៅទីនេះរងនៅខលប៉ះពាល់ណាមួយដែលបាត់បង់លក្ខណៈសម្បត្តិជាបេតិកភណ្ឌពិភពលោកខ្ញុំសូមឲ្យអង្គការអន្តរជាតិដូចជា UNESCO ក៏ដូចជាប្រទេសជាដៃគូដែលហៅព្រមយល់ព្រមធ្វើជាសហប្រធាន ICC គឺមានជប៉ុននិងបារាំងដែលលើកត្រៀមចុះហត្ថលេខារយៈពេល10ឆ្នាំបន្ថែមទៀតគឺកងមានការស្ទើរ
There are currently 3 sites in Cambodia which have been declared World Heritage Sites by UNESCO: the Angkor Wat Temple, Sambo Prey Kuk Temple, and Previhiet Temple. Currently, Cambodia also lists 8 other properties, including temples, ancient sites, and the Tua Slang Genocide Museum on its tentative World Heritage List, a list which is maintained on sites that the country may seek for nomination. Dekanin, EAC News.
The 30 roads projects with a total road length of 108.74 kilometres and 248.72 kilometres of rainwater drainage systems, parks and other physical infrastructure, Siem Reap was officially inaugurated under the presidency of the Prime Minister Hun Sen on Monday morning. The construction took 13 months from the 30th of November 2020 to the end of 2021. EAC News reporter Decca Nin has the story.
Speaking at the inauguration ceremony of the new infrastructure in Siem Reap, the chairman of the Interministerial Commission responsible for infrastructure management in the province and Minister of National Defense, Deputy Prime Minister Thiet Banh, said that these roads play an important role in promoting infrastructure, reducing congestion, attracting investors, and national and international tourists, which all contributed to turning Siem Reap into a modern city and core area of the national economy, as well as a prime tourist destination for culture, heritage, history, and nature. Deputy Prime Minister Thiet Banh said the infrastructure of the 38 roads have a beautiful appearance in the land of Angkor, and at this time act as another glorious achievement built by the work of my people. It is a precious gift of the royal government of Cambodia to all the people in Siem Reap and people across the country for general and long-term use. The 38 roads construction project also installed a network of rainwater and sewage lines along the road and connected the rainwater and sewage system from people's homes to the main sewer on the 38 roads, including the construction of parking on both sides of National Road Number 6 with a total length of 2,190 meters. Furthermore, the project has added flood protection systems to prevent flooding in the city, roadside lighting poles, traffic lights, cables, transmission lines, sidewalks, roads for persons with disabilities, bicycle lanes, parking lots, traffic signs, security camera systems, gardens, and trees planted along the roadside. When presented with this new achievement, people in Siem Reap said that the province has now changed almost completely from before. They said the new infrastructure made it easier for them to travel, safer, and faster.
When I was little, around my house there were not many houses. All the forest around before was scary compared to now, which is very different. Now the road is clean and new trees are planted and it looks really good.
I'm very excited that the Prime Minister came and built all these new roads, lighting systems and security cameras. All are very good, no flaws that I can see. Because of this road, I can travel anywhere at night. It's easy, bright lights and everywhere.
The road is new and easy, but I urge all citizens not to drive too fast. That is, we are better protected than treated.
The 38 roads infrastructure project cost more than $149 million of the national state budget to build, including an additional $4 million provided by Prime Minister Hun Sen to expedite the completion of the project. Prime Minister Hun Sen said at the inauguration ceremony on Monday morning that he was proud that all 38 roads and integrated infrastructure in Siem Reap came from pure Khmer work, both from funding and ideas for construction. The Prime Minister expects that after COVID-19 pandemic is alleviated, tourists will return to enjoy a new Siem Reap province, which will increase the tourism and economic potential for Siem Reap as well as Cambodia as a whole.
ខ្ញុំពិតជាមានមោទនភាពនៅពេលដែលខ្ញុំបានដើរពិនិត្យការពីម្សិលមិញម្សិលមួយថ្ងៃនៅហេដ្ឋារចនាសម្ព័ន្ធនៅក្នុងទីក្រុងរបស់យើងនេះវាមិនមែនជាការងាយស្រួលទេក៏ប៉ុន្តែភាពឆ្លៀសវៃរបស់អ្នកដឹកនាំហើយជាពិសេស គឺក្រុមបញ្ញវន្តវ័យក្មេងជាអ្នកបច្ចេកទេសបានប្រឹងប្រែងដែលខ្ញុំសូមយកឱកាសនេះកោតសរសើរចំពោះក្មួយៗទាំងឡាយដែលបានចូលរួមកសាងនោះហើយជាស្នាដៃកូនខ្មែរហើយយើងនិយាយបានថាខ្មែរធ្វើបាននៅគ្រប់ទីកន្លែង
The construction of the 38 roads take into account the technical standards and roadmaps, the distribution of priority lanes in accordance with the urban landscape, harmony, urbanization, water-friendly forests, and ancient temples. The new infrastructure is also in line with the Siem Reap Municipal Land Use Master Plan and the Siem Reap Tourism Development Master Plan Vision 2035. Dekanin, EAC News.
Dead civilians lay scattered over the streets of the Ukraine country town of Buchan on Saturday, 2nd of April. 3 days after invading Russia, army pulled back an abortive advance on nearby Kiev. The smell of explosives still hung in the cold, dank air, mingling with the stench of death. 66-year-old Vasily, who gave no surname, looked into the sprawled remains of more than a dozen civilians dotted along the roadside outside his house, face cast with grief. Residents said their neighbours had been killed under the fire from the Russian troops during the month-long occupation. A body lay near Vasily in the middle of the road, a few metres from his front door. Vasily said it was his son's godfather, a lifelong friend. Butcher still unburied dead wore no uniforms. There were civilians with bikes, their stiff hands still gripping bags of shopping. Some had clearly been dead for many days, if not weeks. The bastards, Vasily said, weeping with rage in a thick coat of woolen hat. The tank behind me was shooting dogs. Local officials gave Reuters reporters access to the area, and the policemen led its way through the streets, now patrolled by Ukrainian tanks, to the road where the bodies lay. It was not clear why they had not yet been buried. Mayor Anthony Fedoruk said more than 300 residents of the town had been killed, and a mass grave in the grounds of the church was still open, with hands and feet poking through the red clay heaped on top. Several streets were strewn with the mangled wrecks of burnt-out Russian tanks and armoured vehicles. Unexploded rockets lay on the road, and in one spot an unexploded mortar shell poked out of its tarmac. A column of Ukraine tanks patrolled, flying blue and yellow national flags. The Kremlin and the Russian Defense Ministry of Moscow did not immediately reply to the request for comment. A local resident, Maya Zelogsova, 74, said, "It was very scary. Twice I returned from the dead. Once a bullet hit the window and broke the glass and landed in the closet. The second time a piece of shrapnel nearly missed my leg. The third time I was walking and didn't know he was there with a machete gun. He fired but missed me. I come home. I was speechless. I was beside myself. Those were the events. Besides, it was scary. I feared for the lives of my children." Bacha Mayor Anatoly Fedoruk said, "Yes, the situation you're describing is typical of the armed conflict zone. The town of Bacha faced military action and the enemy left their guns for us and fierce fighting. Given their inhumane treatment, including that of civilians, I will give an example. Corpses of executed people still live in line of the Yablotska street in Bacha. Their hands are tied behind their backs with white civilian rags that were shot in the back and of their heads. So you can imagine what kind of lawfulness they pretended to hear. We will record this page of our history and it will be used at their tribunal, but I wouldn't like to talk about it now. You should understand what emotion and relief we are feeling now." Sri Lanka's police used tear gas to disperse protesters in the city of Paradania as they demonstrated over the severe economic crisis on Sunday, the 3rd of April, defying a nationwide curfew.
Sri Lanka's police used tear gas to disperse protesters in the city of Paradania as they demonstrated over a severe economic crisis on Sunday, April 3rd, defying a nationwide curfew. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa declared a state of emergency on Friday, April 2nd, as the Indian Ocean island nation grapples with rising prices, shortages of essentials, and rolling power cuts. On Saturday, the government implemented a countrywide curfew after protests turned violent. On Sunday afternoon, the government lifted a block it had placed on social media platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, and WhatsApp hours earlier. Critics say the roots of the crisis, the worst in several decades, lie in economic mismanagement by successive governments that amassed huge budget shortfalls and a current account deficit. The crisis was accelerated by deep tax cuts Rajapaksa promised during the 2019 election campaign and enacted months before the COVID-19 pandemic, which wiped out parts of Sri Lanka's economy.
The National Election Committee has decided to reject a list of candidates from the Candlelight Party to contest the upcoming Commune District Council elections due to the cited of lack qualifications. EAC News reporter Dashana Guchin has further details.
The removal of the Candlelight Party candidates from the running at the upcoming Commune District Council elections was classified by the NEC as rejecting the list of candidates of the political party for 5 communes and rejecting candidate registration for 6 communes. NEC spokesman Hung Putia confirmed to EAC News that where it is categorized as rejecting the list of candidates of political parties in a certain commune, the party as a whole is no longer eligible to run in the election for that commune. However, the other characterization of rejecting candidate registration only removes the names of the specific candidates from the running and still allows the party to run in the elections. According to a press release issued on Monday, 4th April 2022, the NEC said that the decision to reject this list of candidates was due to the fact that the Candlelight Party was cheating with their choice of candidates, as some who were in the running could not properly read or write in Khmer, faked their identities, did not fill out their declarations agreeing to stand for the elections in person, forging their fingerprints or signatures on their resumes, and failing to meet sufficient conditions in accordance with the laws, regulations, and procedures and the time limit for the registration of candidates at the Commune District Election Commission. The press release states that the cancellation of the list of candidates from the Candlelight Party in 11 Commune District Council elections is in accordance with Articles 35, 36, 37, 39, 40, 41, and 42 of the Commune District Council election law. EAC News was unable to contact the acting chairman and spokesman of the Candlelight Party, Takseta, to request a comment on the removal of his party's candidates from 11 communes in the upcoming elections. The 5th Commune District Council elections will begin on 5th June 2022. According to the National Election Committee, a total of 17 parties have registered to run and vote. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has called the relevant ministries, especially the Ministry of Commerce, as well as the private sector, to organise markets to help Cambodian products to be bought and sold online. The Prime Minister made this call in a letter he wrote to commemorate the upcoming 5th National Day for the promotion of Khmer products on 9th of April. EAC News reporter Deccan Nin has the story.
In the Prime Minister's letter, he notes the theme of the 5th National Day for the promotion of Khmer products as supporting Khmer products to preserve the national economy. He says this theme will inspire as well as encourage all citizens to support and pay attention to the promotion of local products, which contribute to the development and growth of Cambodian society. The Prime Minister proposes that the relevant ministries, institutions, subnational administrations, and public continue to work together to implement the National Committee for the Promotion of One Village, One Product. He urges the capital provinces and the Ministry of Commerce to collaborate with the private sector to organize the online marketplace to assist Cambodian products be bought and sold online, as well as be exhibited at various product exhibition events both in the country and abroad, including at Cambodian representative offices abroad. In addition, he also urged the relevant ministries and institutions to continue smoothly cooperating and coordinating with one another on promoting the use of Cambodian products. This includes continuing to widely disseminate locally made products in Cambodia and abroad in cooperation with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and international cooperation. Cambodian overseas representation will help to promote Cambodian products at various international events and note the potential for the sale of local products in overseas markets. Prime Minister Hun Sen also particularly encourages all Cambodians to support the promotion of Cambodian products under the slogan, "One person buys at least one Cambodian product." It should be noted that the celebrations for the 5th National Day for the promotion of the use of Khmer products, 9th of April 2022, will not be organized in public places, but will be commemorated through the promotion of using Cambodian products. This is to help local producers consider processing more Khmer products, promote the added value of using locally made products, improve the quality of product safety, aesthetic packaging, and set the products at reasonable prices to compete in both domestic and international markets. Dekanin EAC News.
The Ministry of Health has announced the addition of extra vaccine sites from the 13th to the 17th of April 2022 at the major entertainment venues to make it easier for people to receive the COVID-19 vaccine during their Khmer New Year travels. EAC News reporter Srey Paul Kong has more.
According to a press release issued by the Ministry of Health, during the occasion of the Khmer New Year, the 25 capital provincial administrations will add more COVID-19 vaccination sites at major entertainment areas and pagoda to facilitate the provision of COVID-19 vaccines, both the base doses and the booster doses. The ministry also emphasized to all citizens, including those who have not yet been vaccinated at all, and those who need to get their third or fourth booster shot after leaving a gap of at least 4 months from their previous dose, that vaccinations can be regularly obtained at national hospital, provincial hospitals, referral hospitals, and health centers that are open daily. Additionally, during the Khmer New Year, citizens will have the added convenience of getting vaccinated at major resorts or pagodas. The Ministry of Health has reiterated its call for people to receive the basic dose of the COVID-19 vaccines as well as the booster doses when eligible in order to boost community immunity and prevent the further spread of the disease and reduce the incidence and severity of the disease, especially from the new Omicron variant, which is still circulating in the community, along with the other new virus mutations. Furthermore, the ministry urged pregnant women, women who are breastfeeding, patients being treated for chronic illnesses, and those who have recovered from COVID-19 with a 4-month interval to go and get vaccinated at the pro-listed locations. The announcement of the addition of extra vaccination sites during the Khmer New Year by the Ministry of Health came after Prime Minister Hun Sen said during the inauguration ceremony of the 38 roads infrastructure in Siem Reap that the ministry should facilitate citizens who travel for the holidays to allow them to receive both entertainment and vaccination at the same time. Srey Pokong, EAC News.
You're watching EAC News. Thanks for joining us. Russia will present factual evidence to the United Nations Security Council that its forces have not been killing civilians in Ukraine and were not involved in events in Bucha and Vasily Nebenza, Russia envoy UN said on Monday the 4th of April.
There is a meeting being held Wednesday, 6th of April between the Russian ambassador and the United Nations Security Council, where Russia claims to show that they have factual evidence that Russia have not been killing civilians as Ukrainians have stated. Russia stated that they have not misled by false narrative promoted by Kiev and its Western sponsors.
We have factual evidence that proves this point. We intend to present it to Security Council as soon as possible, so that the international community is not misled by the false narrative promoted by Kiev and its Western sponsors.
Do you consider that the statements of these women and family members who've watched their own loved ones being killed by Russian troops are fake?
Look, this is a warfare. And in warfare, anything happens, and you cannot exclude that civilians are dying in a war, and that is a sad fact of life. But the footage that we are being presented with, in particular in Bucha, on which I spoke, does not give us any doubt that was a stage. That was a stage, and we will present more evidence on that tomorrow when we speak in the Security Council. Anyway, let's see what happens tomorrow. Tomorrow you will hear more from us. I promise that I'll be more factual, even more factual than today. Thank you very much.
The International Space Station is set to become busier than usual this week when its crew welcomes aboard 4 new colleagues from the Houston-based startup Axiom Space. the first of all private astronaut team ever flown into the orbiting outpost. The launch is being hailed by the company, NASA and other industry players as a turning point in the latest expansion of commercial space ventures, collectively referred to by insiders as the low Earth orbit economy, or LEO economy for short. Weather permitting, Axiom's four-man team will lift off on Friday the 8th of April at the earliest from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida, riding atop a Falcon 9 rocket finished and flown by Elon Musk's commercial space launch venture SpaceX. The launch was initially scheduled for Wednesday, April the 6th, as Axiom stated did not give a reason for the delay, but the company said its website is continuing pre-launch processing work. If all goes smoothly, the quartet led by retired NASA astronaut Michael Lopez Algira will arrive at the space station 28 hours later as their SpaceX-supplied Crew Dragon capsule docks at ISS some 250 miles above Earth. Lopez Algira, 63, is a Spanish-born mission commander and Axiom's vice president of the business development. He is set to be joined by Larry Connor, a real estate agent and technology entrepreneur and aerobics avatar for Idaho, designated as a mission pilot. Connor is in his late 70s, but the company did not provide his precise age. Rounding out the X-1 team are investor, philanthropist, and former Israel fighter pilot Ethan Stibble, 64, and Canadian businessman and philanthropist Mark Pathy, 52, both serving a mission specialist. Stibble is said to become the second Israel in space after Ihan Ramon, who perished with the 6 NASA crewmates in the 2003 Space Shuttle Columbia disaster. The X-1 crew may appear to have a lot in common with many of the wealthy passengers taking subterranean rides lately aboard the Blue Origin and the Virgin Galactic service, offered by billionaires Jeff Bezos and Richard Branson respectively. But the Axiom executive said their mission is more substantive. It is the beginning of many beginnings for the commercializing low Earth orbit. Axiom's co-founder and executive chairman, Cam Gaffaran, told Reuters in an interview, "We liked the early days of the internet, and we haven't even imagined all the possibilities or the capabilities that we are going to be providing in the space." The so-called X-1 team will be carrying equipment and supplies for 26 science and technology experiments to be conducted before they are slated to leave orbit and return to Earth 10 days after launch. These include research on brain health, cardiac stem cells, cancer and aging, as well as technology demonstration to produce optics using the surface tension of fluids in microgravity, company executive said. Launched to orbit in 1998, ISS have been continuously occupied since 2000 under the US Russian-led partnership, including Canada, Japan, and 11 other European countries. While the space station has hosted visits from civilian visitors from time to time, the X-1 mission will mark the first all-commercial team of astronauts to use the ISS for its intended purpose as an orbiting laboratory. They will be sharing the weightless workspace alongside 7 regular crew members of the ISS, 3 US astronauts, a German astronaut, and 3 Russian cosmonauts. Axiom said it has contracted the SpaceX for the fly 3 more missions to orbit over the next 2 years. NASA selected Axiom in 2020 to design and develop a new commercial wing to the space station, which currently spans the approximate size of a football field. Flight hardware for the first Axiom module is currently undergoing fabrication, the company has said. Plans call for eventually detaching the Axiom modules from the rest of the outpost when ISS is ready for retirement around 2030, leaving the smaller Axiom station in orbit as a commercial-only platform, Graffarin said. Other private operators are expected to place their own stations in orbit once ISS is decommissioned.
We're like early days of internet, and we haven't even imagined all the possibilities, all the capabilities that we're going to be providing in space. So our part is to sort of create this platform, like you said, where it will enable all these other capabilities, all these other companies to flourish and do their activities. And we'll be selling that platform as a service for them. We now know that when you go to space, there's a little bit of acceleration in aging, right? And so we're doing some clinical research and saying, wow, if there's a little acceleration, and identifying what causes that acceleration, and by understanding that, can we slow aging or even stop it for that matter? And then there's some relationship, for example, to the T cells that we discovered, and there is some connectivity to even cancer. So, for example, can we come up with a cure of cancer?
China's economic hub of Shanghai has enforced nucleic acid tests for all its 25 million residents on Monday in efforts to completely eliminate potential risk of COVID-19 transmission.
On Sunday, Shanghai reported 425 locally transmitted COVID-19 cases and 8,581 asymptomatic carriers, the local health commission said. To tame the surge in cases, more than 10 designated hospital, backup designated hospital, and temporary hospital, as well as some public facilities which were transformed into temporary site, are open to make sure that all suspected and confirmed patients are admitted to the hospital. Meanwhile, authorities are actively allocating the city hemodialysis treatment resources and coordinating with medical institutions citywide to ensure that patients needing hemodialysis receive normal treatment amid the resurgence of COVID-19. According to Shanghai Public Security Department on Monday, a total of 50,000 police officers have been dispatched to the front line. Furthermore, 3 Chinese provinces dispatched batches of daily necessity to Shanghai on Sunday to aid in the battle against the epidemic. A cargo train carrying 16 containers of agriculture and satellite products, including vegetable, eggs, and edible oil, departed from a railway station in Yancheng, East China Jiangsu province on Sunday, heading for Yangpu Station in Shanghai. In Fuzhou City, East China Jiangxi province, a township government on Sunday organized more than 40 volunteers to pick and load 14 tons of seasonal vegetables donated by local farmers. A locomotive pulling 3 special carriages on Sunday left a fridge yard in Tianshui, Northwest China Gansu province, and headed for Shanghai. The carriages are full of agricultural and sideline products such as potatoes, onion, and apple, as well as various daily necessities. More than 38,000 medics from 15 provincial level regions nationwide have rushed to Shanghai to aid in the battle against the resurging COVID-19 epidemic, according to the National Health Commission (NHC). Over 11,000 medics have assumed responsibility for work in temporary hospital, and over 23,000 medical workers are responsible for collecting nucleic acid samples, according to Zhao Yahui, a senior NHC official, and nearly 4,000 people have been dispatched to support the work in the COVID-19 testing lab. Nucleic acid testing teams with a daily handling capacity of 2.38 million test tubes have also been mobilized, the commission said.
The permanent mission of Kingdom of Cambodia to United Nations in Geneva has called on United Nations to establish a special monitoring mechanism to ensure the effective implementation of the Special Rapporteur's Code of Conduct. In a press release issued by the permanent mission of the Kingdom of Cambodia to the United Nations on the efforts and progress made by Cambodia in the field of human rights, the Cambodian ambassador and a permanent representative to the UN office in Geneva, Sokun An, stated that the UN Human Rights Council should prioritise addressing the escalation of hate speech, misinformation and incitement lurking under the banner of freedom of expression. While supporting efforts to improve the work of the Special Rapporteur, this includes a call for the establishment and oversight mechanism to ensure the offensive implementation of the Special Rapporteur's Code of Conduct. Recently, there has been an increased exchange between the UN Special Rapporteur and the Cambodian representative to the UN at the UN Human Rights Council meeting in Geneva, Switzerland. The 49th session of the UN Human Rights Council was held from 28th of February to the 1st of April 2022. On the 30th of March, Ambassador Sakun An responded to a statement made by the UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in Cambodia, Vitit Matarabon, asking for proof of his report of human rights and the democracy in Cambodia are in a wondering state of rejection. He also reminded the Special Rapporteur that the human rights agenda is not a sprint, but rather a marathon run with commitment, effort and progress. He emphasized that such decisions on the topic should be conducted on the bias of statistics and efforts and not a perception. The Cambodian Minister of Commerce, Pan Saw Sak, led a delegation of the Commerce Ministry to meet with the Ambassador of the United Kingdom to ASEAN, John Lam, and the Ambassador of the United Kingdom to Cambodia, Tina Redshaw, on Tuesday afternoon at the Ministry of Commerce in Phnom Penh. During the meeting, Minister Pan Saw Sak extended his thanks to the British government for helping Cambodia during the COVID-19 pandemic. EAC News reporter Dashana Guchin has further details.
During the meeting, Minister Pan Saw Sak thanked the British government for providing preferential trade to the least developed countries in the world, including Cambodia, which contributed to Cambodia's economic development. He also thanked the British government for providing COVID-19 vaccines to the royal government and people of Cambodia to aid in the fight against COVID-19 and assist in the reopening of economic activities. The minister expressed his strong belief that the new normalization path set by the royal government, combined with recent achievements made in the field of trade, will be a new catalyst for the strengthening of bilateral trade between Cambodia and the United Kingdom. The two sides will continue to expand cooperation to find new opportunities and potential for trade, business, and investment in the future. Regarding Cambodia's ASEAN chairmanship, the minister informed the British delegation of the ASEAN economic ministers' full support for the priority economic deliverables Cambodia has set out under the pillars of the ASEAN economic community. He said that Cambodia welcomes the support of the United Kingdom, an important dialogue partner of ASEAN, to join Cambodia in the implementation of all economic priorities successfully, especially within the framework of the implementation and action plan between ASEAN and dialogue partners, which includes cooperation in areas such as digital commerce, promoting women's entrepreneurship, participating in small and medium enterprises, promoting sustainable agriculture, tourism, hospitality, and other related services. In response, the British ambassador commended Minister Pan Saw Sak for the progress and efforts made by the royal government of Cambodia through the Ministry of Commerce to promote better bilateral trade relations between the two countries, as well as the important role of Cambodia as the chair of ASEAN. She also reaffirmed the support of the United Kingdom to Cambodia in working closely together to achieve the economic priorities that Cambodia has successfully set and to build a sustainable and resilient environment for the ASEAN community. At the end of the meeting, both sides pledged to continue cooperating closely to promote the mutual development of both countries' economic and trade sectors. Darshana Gauchan, EAC News.
The Ministry of Education, Youth, Sports and UNICEF of Cambodia have released a technical national learning assessment report, which reports alarming findings on the learning loss experienced by Cambodian students due to the closures of the cause of by COVID-19 pandemic. EAC News reporter Deccan Nin has the story.
The Ministry of Education and UNICEF Cambodia published the findings from a Grade 6 National Learning Assessment report on Tuesday, April 5th. The study for the report compares data from the 2016 and 2021 National Learning Assessments conducted by the Ministry of Education. The data for the 2021 National Learning Assessment was collected in November 2021 with the support of UNICEF and other Capacity Development Partnership Fund partners, and the results of the analysis were first released in March 2022. More than 6,000 students across 230 schools in Cambodia were found to have fallen behind in their learning during the pandemic, according to the Ministry of Education Quality Assurance Department. In particular, comparing data from the 2016 National Learning Assessment, the percentage of students who failed to demonstrate basic proficiency in the Khmer language rose from 34 to 45%, and the subject of mathematics showed even worse results, with the failures increasing from 49 to 74%. During the 2020-2021 period, schools were closed for 250 days, which is the equivalent of almost two-thirds of the 2 school years. The report also reveals that although all students experienced learning loss from the school closures, the impact was not evenly distributed. Boys were found to have lost more learning and performed worse in testing compared to girls. The Minister of Education, Youth and Sports, Hong Chun Narong, has noted that these are worrying results. He further stated, "We worked hard with all our parents to put in place remote learning measures for students when schools were closed during the pandemic. The studies have shown that these did help to maintain learning for many, but the learning assessment results confirmed that these activities simply couldn't be enough to compensate for all that is lost by children when they are not learning in a classroom." According to a press release from UNICEF, the Ministry of Education hosted a joint technical working group meeting with all its education partners in response to the grim findings of the report, in order to devise and plan a way forward. It was acknowledged that the ministry had already taken some crucial steps, such as mandating remedial lessons as soon as schools reopened, But the working group agreed that these needed to be expanded and strengthened to help students catch up, with increased targeting at the most disadvantaged students who suffered the greatest learning loss. The full report and summary of findings can be found and read on UNICEF's website. Dekanin, EAC News.
Bavarian President Pedro Castillo on Thursday the 5th of April afternoon lifted a curfew ordering following widespread defiance on the streets, as protesters spiraled against the rising fuel and fertiliser prices triggered by the Ukraine conflict.
We are going to cancel the curfew order, Castillo said in the meeting with Congress. Castillo issued a sudden curfew mandate minutes before midnight on Monday, ordering Lima residents to stay at home between 2 a.m. and 11:59 p.m. in an attempt to curb nationwide protests over surging prices. But the curfew triggered a fresh crisis for Castillo administration, with thousands of people taking to the street to defy the curfew. He cut the curfew short just after 5 p.m. local time. The new protests on Tuesday added to a broader crisis that started a week ago in Peru over mounting inflation, which rattled Castillo just days after he survived an impeachment trial. Western sanctions on Russia have cut supply of oil and fertilizers, hurting fragile emerging economies like Peru. Like many countries, Peru was battling high inflation before the war started, but the conflict has accelerated a surge in the price of food, fuel, and other essential items. Peru's March inflation at 1.48% was the highest in 26 years. Castillo rose to power last year with overwhelming support from Peru's rural population, but rising prices have led the same group to stage the most significant protests so far in his administration. Castillo's popularity has worn quickly and now hovers at around 25%. He has survived 2 impeachment attempts and cycled through an unprecedented number of cabinet members in his 8-month administration. The lockdown order stunned many Limanos, as residents of the capital unknown, who took to the streets to defy what they saw as a violation of their civil liberties. The government has repeatedly said, without providing evidence, that the curfew was necessary to avoid lootings.
Tensions between Russia and Ukraine have intensified after hundreds of murdered civilians were allegedly found following the withdrawal of Russian forces from Ukraine's Bucha. Russian military forces on Monday night destroyed a training base of the Ukrainian Special Forces in Ochakov using a high-precision sea-based missile. The Russian Defense Ministry said on Tuesday the center is also used as a camp for foreign mercenaries in Ukraine. Russian forces also destroyed 4 fuel depots serving the Ukrainian army with the air-based missiles, according to the ministry. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Monday visited the town of Bucha outside Kyiv, where hundreds of murdered civilians were allegedly found after the Russian forces withdrew, the Ukrinform news agent said. At least 280 people, including children, were found dead in Bucha, some 28 kilometers northwest of Kyiv, after the Ukrainian army retook control of the town from the Russian military. Zelensky earlier called the killings of civilians in Bucha a war crime. The Russian Defense Ministry on Sunday referred to Kyiv's accusation on alleged killings of civilians in the settlement of Bucha. Russia will present empirical evidence to the United Nations Secretary Council that forces have not been killing civilians in Ukraine and were not involved in events in Bucha. Valery Nebenzia, Russia's envoy to the UN, said at the press conference on Monday. Meanwhile, Russia and Ukraine are continuing their intensive talks via video link after the latest face-to-face negotiations concluded in Turkey, Istanbul last week. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said on Monday that the possibility of success of Russia-Ukraine talks always exists. He hopes Kyiv will follow in national interest of Russia-Ukraine peace talks, but not listen to advisers from afar. Zelensky said Monday that he thinks the negotiations with Russia is becoming increasingly difficult given the killing of civilians in Bucha. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres on Monday called for an independent investigation into the killings of the hundreds of civilians in Bucha. "I'm deeply shocked by the images of civilians killed in Bucha, Ukraine," Guterres wrote on his official Twitter account. It is essential that an independent investigation leads to effectively accountability. European countries continue to pressure on Russia by expelling Russian diplomats on Monday and Tuesday. Germany on Monday announced 40 officials of the Russian embassy were declared undesirable and they need to leave Germany within 5 days. Italy announced on Tuesday that the country has expelled 30 Russian diplomats on the national security grounds. Danish Foreign Minister Jeppe Kofod announced that the expulsion of 15 Russian diplomat staff members during a foreign policy board meeting on Tuesday, accusing them as intelligence officers for espionage. France's Minister of Europe and Foreign Affairs said on Monday that the country has decided to expel 35 Russian diplomats. Russia will respond proportionally to some Western countries' expulsions of Russian diplomats. Deputy Chairman of the Russian Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, said Monday. The expulsion of Russian diplomats from several European countries is a pre-agreed campaign that strikes a bilateral relations, Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Alexander Krashko said on Tuesday. Obviously, this campaign is pre-agreed. A blow in the beginning dealt with bilateral relations through the channels of diplomat communication, and the Deputy Minister was quoted as saying by TASS. So far, around 20 countries are in a diplomatic rift with Russia, and Russian Foreign Minister spokesman Maria Zakharova said Russia will give appropriate response. The United Kingdom on Monday called on its allies to impose together sanctions against Russia following the alleged killings of civilians in Bacha. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen on Tuesday announced the EU is proposing a fifth package on sanctions against Russia or Ukraine. The sanctions include an imported ban on coal from Russia worth €4 billion per year, a full transition ban on 4 key Russian banks, among the VTB, the second largest Russian bank. Still, the EU will ban Russian and Russian-operated vessels from accessing EU ports and the Russian and Belarusian road transport operators, as well as import further export bans on crucial areas like advanced semiconductors, machinery and transport, The EU is also seeking specific new import bans worth €5.5 billion and other targeted measures against Russia, von der Leyen said. A day earlier, French President Emmanuel Macron had called for progress in further moves towards sanctions on the European Union level, which he said could target the oil and coal industries.
Deuxièmement, il est clair qu'il y a des indices aujourd'hui.
Now for a look at the news making international headlines this Monday, the 4th of April.
At least 16 people were killed and another 8 to 10 people went missing in heavy rains that hit the Brazilian state of Rio de Janeiro, local authorities said on Sunday. The heavy rainfall caused landslides on the road between the city of Rio de Janeiro and the city of Angra dos Reis, one of the hardest hit areas. The Rio state government has blocked vehicles from entering the area. Fernando Jordão, mayor of Angra dos Reis, said on social media on Sunday that the city has decided to shut down the Angra nuclear power plant because local rescue forces couldn't guarantee the safe operation of the plant anymore. He also asked the Brazilian Ministry of Infrastructure to take immediate actions to ensure the nuclear plant's safety. Since March 31st, heavy downpours have continued to batter the southern part of the Rio state. Angra dos Reis had received 655 milliliters of rainfall in the past 48 hours, the highest amount ever recorded in the city. The rain was quite heavy, with the entire city almost submerged by the flood and the whole valley filled by landslides. Power also went out last night. We were in total darkness, said a resident in Angra dos Reis. I've never seen such a heavy rain before in the place where I lived for 30 years. Because of the rain, many houses collapsed one by one, said another resident in Angra dos Reis. According to Brazil's National Weather Service, more rains are expected in the Rio de Janeiro area and other areas in the coming days, and authorities have issued alerts for floods and mudslides.
Pope Francis on Sunday, the 3rd of April, repeated that he was ready to make a trip to the Ukraine capital, Kyiv, but added that he had yet to decide if it would be feasible. He was speaking to journalists on the plane returning from Malta. In a speech on Saturday, Francis implicitly criticised Putin over the invasion, saying to Putin was fomenting conflict for the national interest. Francis had strongly commended what he has called an unjustified aggression and denounced autocracies, but he has only referred to Russia directly in prayers, such as during a special global event on peace on 25th of March. He said he would like to meet this year with Patriarch Kirill of the Russian Orthodox Church, whose support for the war has split the worldwide Orthodox community. During the Malta trip, the 85-year-old Pope was suffering from a flare-up and a knee pain due to inflammation inflamed ligament that forced him to use lifts out to board and dismark planes. He also had to sit for parts of long of Mass on Sunday. My health is a bit tempestuous, he said in response to a question. Francis stood for about 20 minutes speaking to journalists while on the plane and did not appear to be any discomfort. Pope Francis, on whether he is planning a trip to Kiev, said, "I'm always available. There is not a no. I am available. What do we think about the trip?" The question was made to me like this: "We heard you were thinking about the trip to Ukraine." I said, "It's on the table. It is there among the proposals, but I don't know if I will be possible. It would be useful to do it. If doing it would bring any improvements, if it is useful to do it, and if I must do it. All this is up in the air. For while we have been thinking of the meeting with Patrick Grill, we are working on this. We are thinking about doing it in the Middle East."
And although the war is still raging in Ukraine, in the southern port city of Odessa, musicians are responding to the miseries of war with their most powerful weapons, songs and dance. A microphone, a guitar, a piano, and a balcony are all the artists need to fill the city's streets with their tunes as dozens of people gathered to listen on Saturday, 2nd April. Accompanied by his guitar, singer Roman Kapitanov entertained his audience with Ukrainian songs, his passion obvious from his smile. "I am very happy that I can do this here and really happy that there are people for who I can sing, because it is not a really simple situation now," he said. "Here in Odessa, we have to be strong enough to protect ourselves here because we are the owners of the city." Perron No. 7 Jazz Club is open for activists and musicians helping the community and willing to share their art. Yaroslav Trofimov, the club's owner and a singer himself, is worried about the expansion of war, but said he wanted to do his part. "We are here in Odessa totally into this war. We are checking the news 40 times per day. We are expecting something bad to happen every second," he told Reuters. "Our goal right now is to give people 1 hour when they can feel they are still living a normal life," he added, before showing off his singing talent from the balcony. The music fever also spread to the nearby market, where dozens of people danced to a lively tune. Members of singer Victoria Shostak's family are stuck in Kherson and can't leave the city. She feels helpless but still wanted the show to go on. Having not performed in public for 2 months, she needed a quick check of her lyrics before stepping onto the balcony, taking the microphone and entertaining passers-by with her songs. The music does provide a bit of relief from the conflict, but Russia's defense ministry said missile strikes by its military destroyed an oil refinery and 3 fuel storage facilities in the city on Sunday.
Now for a look at the news making international headlines this Thursday, the 5th of April.
Drastic cuts to fossil fuel use, growing forests, and eating less meat. These are just some of the actions needed in this decade to contain global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial temperatures, a major report by the UN Climate Science Agency said on Monday, April 4th. Despite climate change warnings issued by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change since 1990, global emissions have continued to rise in the last decade, reaching their highest point in history. The result, global emissions are on track to blow past the 1.5 degrees Celsius warning limit envisioned in the 2015 Paris Agreement and reach some 3.2 degrees Celsius by the century's end.
This report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is a litany of broken climate promises. It is a file of shame, cataloguing the empty pledges that put us firmly on track towards an unlivable world. We are on a fast track to climate disaster. Major cities underwater, unprecedented heat waves, terrifying storms, widespread water shortages, the extinction of 1 million species of plants and animals. And this is not fiction or exaggeration. It is what science tells us will result from our current energy policies.
At this point, only severe emissions cuts in this decade across all sectors, from agriculture and transport to energy and buildings, can turn things around, the report says. Even then, governments will also need to bolster efforts to plant more trees and develop technologies that could remove some of the carbon dioxide already in the atmosphere after more than a century of industrial activity. We left COP26 in Glasgow with a naive optimism based on new promises and commitments, said Guterres, added that current climate pledges would still mean a 14% increase in emissions, and most major emitters are not taking the steps needed to fulfill even these inadequate promises. He said that the high-emitting governments and corporations are adding fuel to the flames based on their vested interests and historic investments in fossil fuels. They broke their promises. Unless there are immediate and deep emission reductions across all sectors, limiting warming to 1.5 degrees will be beyond reach, IPCC report co-chair Chimsky told a news conference, marking the launch of the last report in a 3-part series by the IPCC, with the next review cycle not expected for at least another 5 years.
Myanmar's military continues to receive support from arms suppliers in Russia as those Southeast Asian countries' armed forces intensify a crackdown on civilians and those opposing its rule. 2 high-ranking police officers who have resigned from their position to become the latest to join the civil disobedience movement against military rule confirmed that the military cooperation has continued between Russia and Myanmar, who have signed the Military Technical Cooperation in 2018. Under the deal, Myanmar had deployed some volunteer soldiers to Russia to participate in an ongoing Russia war on Ukraine. Because of these sanctions imposed on Myanmar by Western countries in the junta area, Myanmar was forced to buy weapons from Russia. According to the ex-Air Force captain, Myanmar uses Russian fighter jets to destroy resistance forces. They added the military used Russian-made M135 helicopters, jet fighters, submarines and other military Russian equipment to launch airstrikes in Myanmar, mainly in multiple ethnic states in Sangnam, Karenni and Kayang, leaving a lot of people killed and wounded. Although Russia and Myanmar have a close and important relationship, the ex-officer said that Russia would hide the support of gear it provides the Myanmar military from the public.
Hundreds of indigenous people began gathering in the Brazilian capital on Monday, April 4, for a 10-day protest camp to defend their land's right and oppose a government bill in Congress that would allow mining and oil exploration on their reservations. Organizers are hoping to gather 7,000 people from 200 of Brazil, 305 tribes to press Congress not to pass legislation proposed by far-right President Jair Bolsonaro that would open their protected lands to commercial mining and agriculture. Warriors in feather headdresses with their body painted with black and red dyes of Amazon fruit seeds dance chanting ritual song as they put up tents on the grassy esplanade next to government ministry in central Brasilia. Sonia Wajajara, head of the country's main indigenous umbrella organization, the Articulation of Indigenous People APIB, which represents most of Brazil, 900,000 indigenous people, said they wouldn't back down. President Jair Bolsonaro has said indigenous people have too much land, holding up the development of the country, and vowed not to recognize an inch more of reservation lands. Environmentalists say the reservation saved the rainforest from destruction. Wajajara said 13% of Brazil territory is protected indigenous reservation land, with 98% of that in the Amazon region. But 400 indigenous communities are still struggling to get their ancestral land recognized. Chief Albi Ranan said that he wanted to make it known that the indigenous people were the first inhabitant of Brazil. The world should know that they aren't that they are living history, that they are a living book. Bill 191 is being fast-tracked in the lower house of Congress by lawmakers allied to the government who accuse that it is needed to extract potash for fertilizer for Brazil grain crops that depend on import disrupted by the Ukraine war. The legislation backed by the powerful farm lobby would also allow hydroelectric dams to be built on the indigenous lands.
If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of our platforms and channels. The EAC News app, YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eacnews.asia. Join me, Andrew Barnes-Roberts, and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favorite channels. EAC News, Cambodia.
The outgoing United Nations resident coordinator in Cambodia, Pauline Tamassis, has praised the leadership of the royal government of Cambodia as well as Cambodia's contribution to the world. She has said that she considers Cambodia to be a role model for other countries to follow. This remarks was made during the meeting between the ongoing UN President and Coordinator Prime Minister Hun Sen Thursday morning. EAC News reporter Deccan Nin has the story.
On Thursday morning, the outgoing UN resident coordinator Pauline Tamassis paid a courtesy visit to Prime Minister Hun Sen on the occasion of her mission in Cambodia coming to an end. During the meeting, she said that Cambodia is a good partner of the United Nations, which has contributed to world peace, stability, and effective leadership in the fight against COVID-19, which are all successes that can be seen as models for other countries to follow and valuable experiences that can be used and shared in the future. The Prime Minister's personal assistant, Ieng Sopolite, told reporters after the meeting that the outgoing UN resident coordinator informed Prime Minister Hun Sen that the UN system is committed to continuing the support to Cambodia through potential sectors. Firstly, investing in human resources. Secondly, promoting the use of digital systems. And thirdly, on addressing climate change and establishing a green economy. In response, Prime Minister Hun Sen agreed with the UN resident coordinator and thanked her for her contribution to the socio-economic development of Cambodia, especially in the fight against COVID-19. He also cited the UN support system for Cambodia when receiving the Amsterdam cruise ship, which rescued thousands of stranded people during the early height of the pandemic. Ieng Sopolite further told reporters that the Prime Minister informed Ms. Pauline Tamassis and her delegation about the Blossom strategy used to fight COVID-19, with continued attention paid to social protection and the health sector. The Prime Minister also thanked the outgoing UN resident for her time in Cambodia and wished her success in her next mission. Pauline Tamassis was appointed as the UN resident coordinator in Cambodia on the 12th of March 2018. Prior to coming to Cambodia, Tamassis spent 2 years in Thailand, where she worked as the country director of the UNDP Bangkok Regional Center. During her 4-year mission in Cambodia, Tamassis was involved in key work related to employment and vocational training including providing decent work to Cambodians, TVET skills deployment for youth, labor migration, the garment sector, and social security. Deccan Nin, EAC News.
The Minister of Interior, Deputy Prime Minister Saw Keng, has ordered the Special Immigration Police Force, along with the border, strengthen control over the entry and exit of foreigners, as well as immediate deportation of foreigners found to have entered the country without requirement legal documents. EAC reporter Dashana Guchin has the details.
While speaking at the closing ceremony of the meeting to summarize the work results of 2021 and set the direction of the General Department of Immigration for 2022, held on Wednesday afternoon, Deputy Prime Minister Saw Keng affirmed that the Royal Government of Cambodia and the General Department of Immigration have successfully been carrying out the work of confiscating illegally held documents from foreigners so that illegal residence in Cambodia will not occur. He stated, strict measures must be taken regularly and no one should be allowed to live illegally in Cambodia. He further stressed that officials must not conspire with illegal immigrants and must equally apply the law to people of all nationalities. In addition, he advised all officials to not leave this problem to fester until it becomes even more difficult to solve. He said, let the border authorities, police commissioner, and police inspector adhere to this principle so that we know how many foreigners are living in our area legally, and if there is any illegal residence identified, it must be dealt with swiftly in accordance with the established deportation measures and the procedures in force. The Deputy Prime Minister also expressed his happiness over foreigners receiving permanent residence permits in Cambodia and said that there have been about 9,000 people who have come to renew the validity of their permits once they have expired, and about 7,000 people who have submitted requests for extensions of stay. At this time, he also emphasized that the cases where anyone who has received a permanent residence permit but fails to renew it after its expiration date and continues to stay in Cambodia will also be considered as illegal residents, so immediate action must be taken in response, including eviction. According to a 2019 report from the Director General of the General Department of Immigration, General Kiat Chantarit, the department has confiscated permits from 28,945 foreigners out of a total of 89,786 permits issued for holding irregular administrative documents. The 2019 report also states that the Ministry of Interior had issued permanent residence permits to 65,168 people over the age of 18, with around 19,561 renewal cards issued every 2 years. Of this number, 15,933 were renewed for the first time, 3,567 for the second time, 52 for the third time, and 9 for the fourth time. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
The Culture, Tourism and Sports Fair has been officially opened on the 6th of April 2022 under the chairmanship of Tourism Minister Tong Kong with the Timor-Leste Ambassador Cambodia Emmanuel Kapwa Lopez at the Murdoch Techchol National Stadium. EAC News reporter April Kong has more details.
The exhibition is organized for 5 days from 6 to 10 April 2022. The purpose is to celebrate the Khmer New Year, promote the traditional culture, local food, and inspire local tourism products. Minister Tong Kon said that through this event, Murdoch Techchol National Stadium will be a new tourist destination in an area that has the potential to attract tourists and will also be the venue for the SEA Games for the upcoming 2023. The representative from KHB Media that co-organized the exhibition, Ms. Boranek, also said that the event has a program of Khmer cultural custom accompanied by Khmer New Year songs, Khmer traditional song, and social media TikTok award, TikTok party, and the first TikTok charity in Cambodia. The TikTok idols will compete to win the TikTok Award 2022 and help to raise funds to donate to Kun Kep Bopat Children's Hospital. The event also features local and general product exhibitions, tourism, education, cultural, financial and real estate, motor vehicle, and sports stall with a total of nearly 300 booths. Taking this opportunity, Minister Tong Kon called on and reminded the subnational administration and private sector in the tourism sector to promote and implement the measure of the royal government, the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Tourism to prevent, protect, and maintain safety to provide confidence and warmth for tourists traveling in Cambodia, contribute to promoting Cambodia as a safe and warm tourist destination. With last night being the opening night, over 2,000 people had attended. For the opening, the younger crowd dancing with their TikTok idols, with traditional dancing, with people eating and tasting the local food with lots of sitting in the area. The event is for all ages to show off their talents in dancing, singing, TikToking, and enjoy the entertainment. Sray Kong, EAC News.
The Minister of Tourism, Tong Kong, has reminded the subnational administration and the private tourism sector to promote and implement the measures of the royal government to prevent, protect and maintain safety and to the trust to provide comfort to tourists travelling in Cambodia, in order to contribute in promotion of Cambodia as a safe and warm tourism destination. He has particularly requested all tour operators to think of new business models, adapt and current socio-economic situation. EAC News reporter Deccan Nin has more.
Speaking at the opening ceremony of the Culture, Tourism and Sports Fair at the Murdoch Techchol National Stadium Wednesday evening, Minister Tong Kon made a number of proposals to help prevent the spread of COVID-19 and ensure the stability and the sustainability of tourism business bases and tourism destinations in Cambodia, especially in regard to welcoming tourists for the upcoming Khmer New Year. He urged all tour operators and stakeholders to continue paying close attention to the implementation of safety rules and the minimum standard operating procedures for tourism set by the Ministry of Tourism, as well as to continue responsibly adhering to the safety rules established by the royal government. He also suggested that all stakeholders, especially tour operators, should adapt and modify their business models in line with the context of the new normal, with continued vigilance and in conjunction with the implementation of applicable safety measures. He said, All stakeholders in the tourism industry need to consider a new business model to adapt to the current socio-economic situation, including the need to transform tourism services through digitalization and the use of technology, the need to strengthen the hygiene and safety quality of services and tourism products, and to strengthen overall capacity and increase productivity. The Deputy Governor of Phnom Penh, Kasok Pisay, also spoke at the ceremony and requested Phnom Penh residents and all tourists to continue actively participating in the implementation of the 3 do's and 3 don'ts health measures to prevent the further spread of COVID-19 and ensure the stability and sustainability of tourism services in Phnom Penh, especially during the upcoming Khmer New Year. The Deputy Governor also requested all tourism business owners to continue following the minimum standard operating procedures according to the types of services they offer with high responsibility. Cambodia announced the launch of the Cambodia Safe and Green Tourism Destinations campaign on the 27th of January to ensure the success of the international tourism relaunch ahead of celebrations that will be regarded on the international stage, such as the 2023 Southeast Asian Games and other major events that will be hosted by Cambodia. The campaign also includes the Capital Provincial Tourism and Green Destination Campaign, which aims to encourage the Capital Provincial Administration efforts to implement tourism safety rules and implement minimum standard operating procedures along the royal government's new normal trajectory. Nikanin, EAC News.
Experts from the Apsara National Authority's Department of Movement Conservation and Preventive Archaeology have begun a process of restoring the Ta Ong Bridge, which is an ancient bridge built in the Angkorian period. The restoration period is expected to last from April to August 2022, using the funds from the Apsara Authority itself. EAC News reporter Darshana Guchin has more.
The main objectives of the restoration are to rehabilitate the ancient bridge's foundation, to strengthen its structure, as well as to facilitate the flow of water to prevent flooding. Such restoration will allow for the smooth travel of people in the future and will also attract more tourists to visit the site. The official in charge of restoring this bridge, Putsot, said that in the south side of the Ta Aung Bridge, there is a lot of deterioration, such as falling stones in 2 spots and a cracked bridge wall. He further stated that the restoration process his team is engaged in involves making a list of stone registration plans, restoring the stones, strengthening bridge pillars that have collapsed, and restoring the cracked wall on the east side. The Naga balustrade at a total length of 70 meters will also be restored during this process. Sot added that the main factors causing the deterioration of the Ta Aung Bridge were age, natural factors, and pressure from the weight of people walking over it. The bridge was built in the Angkorian period from laterite and is decorated with a sandstone carving of a meditating Buddha sitting at the center of a 9-headed Naga in the Bayon style. In 2020, experts from the Apsara National Authority conducted the first phase of the Ta Aung Bridge restoration on the north side of the bridge, which included the restoration of the Naga balustrade, the reinforcement of 18 pillar walls, and the excavation of the waterway flowing through. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
Young protesters gathered in Sri Lanka's capital Wednesday, the 6th of April, to demonstrate against the government of the country suffering through its worst economic crisis in decades.
Standing in Independence Square in Colombo, 26-year-old Kasumi Ranasinghirachi said the protest was due to the constant oppression by the state of trying to silence us, trying to ignore other voices. Protests led by young people have continued daily since Sunday, 3rd of April, and they have said they will not stop until the president meets their demands or resigns. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa revoked a state of emergency late on Tuesday after dozens of lawmakers walked out of the ruling coalition, leaving his government in a minority in parliament as it struggles to quell protests against the crisis. The emergency was imposed on Friday. People have been suffering from shortages of fuel, power, food, and other items for weeks, and doctors say the entire health system could now collapse. The day before, Sri Lankan police used tear gas and water cannons to disperse hundreds of protesters gathered outside Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa's private residence in Tanggale. It happened as Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa dropped his brother as finance minister on Monday after disbanding the government and calling for a unity administration as protests over the country's economic crisis focused on the role of the ruling family. Less than a kilometer away, hundreds of people demonstrated with placards and shouted anti-government slogans. Sri Lanka's sovereign dollar bonds tumbled more than 5 cents in the dollar in early trading before recouping some of the losses, with many issues trading at deeply distressed levels of around 45 cents and not far off record lows hit in early March, TradeWeb data showed. Sri Lanka's expenditure has exceeded its income under successive governments, while its production of tradable goods and services has been inadequate. The twin deficits were badly exposed by the COVID-19 pandemic that crippled tourism, its economic mainstay.
US Deputy Secretary Wendy Sherman on Wednesday, the 6th of April, said that the range of sanctions imposed on Russia for its war in Ukraine should give China's leader Xi Jinping a good understanding of consequences China could face if it provides material support for Russia.
Sherman made the remark at a U.S. House of Representatives Foreign Affairs Committee hearing. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen also issued a warning to China that Treasury was prepared to turn in sanction tools against Beijing in the event of Chinese aggression against Taiwan, which China claimed as a wayward province. Asked if the United States would take such steps if Taiwan was threatened, she said, "Absolutely, I believe we've shown that we can. In the case of Russia, we threatened significant consequences. We've imposed significant consequences, and I think that you should not doubt our ability and resolve to do the same in other situations."
If China, in any way, shape, or form, provides material support to Putin in this premeditated, unjust, and unprovoked invasion, there will be consequences. I think one only has to look at the range of sanctions, more to be announced today, against Putin, against the economy, against individuals who are enablers, against elites, against oligarchs, export controls, designations, sanctions that are not only from the United States, but in unprecedented fashion, coordinated with our allies and partners, not just in Europe, but throughout the world. It gives President Xi, I think, a pretty good understanding of what might come his way should he, in fact, support Putin in any material fashion. This is a very serious matter that we take quite seriously.
The potential of consequential U.S.-India relationship, to me, is worth the effort.
Cambodia was among 58 countries that abstained from the UN General Assembly votes on the suspension of Russia from the UN Human Rights Council on Thursday. At the final count, 93 countries voted for the suspension and 24 voted against. EAC News reporter Decca Nin has more details.
Abstentions in elections indicate a willingness to remain silent and neither support or oppose a certain decision. Among the ASEAN member states, Cambodia is not the only country that abstained from the vote. 6 other countries also chose to abstain, while Vietnam and Laos voted against, and the Philippines and Myanmar supported the removal of Russia. EAC News could not reach Foreign Ministry spokesman Chom Sonari for comment. The United Nations General Assembly on Thursday voted to suspend Russia from the UN Human Rights Council over reports of gross and systematic violations and abuses of human rights in Ukraine. Shortly after, Moscow announced that it was quitting the body. Following the election, Russia's Deputy Ambassador to United Nations, Gennady Kuzmin, described the move as illegal and politically motivated. Thus, Russia decided to leave the Human Rights Council altogether. Dekanin, EAC News.
The Secretary of State of Ministry of Interior and the Permanent Vice Chair of National Committee for Counter-Trafficking of Cambodia, Chun Bon-Eng, has said that on 2021, during the closure of the border with neighbouring countries, 140,664 migrant workers, including 62,184 women, returned to Cambodia over the border. EAC News reporter Dashana Guchin has more details.
Speaking at the launch of the National Report on Combating Human Trafficking in 2021 and the NCCT's Work Plan for 2022, Secretary of State Chu Bun-eng added that because of the closure of borders and the lockdown of high-risk areas in neighboring countries during the height of the pandemic in 2020, a high number of migrant workers returned to Cambodia, with more than 130,000 people crossing the border. The Minister of Interior, Deputy Prime Minister Saw King, also spoke at the launch ceremony and called on all stakeholders to continue working together to form key measures, prevent and crack down on human trafficking to solve this ongoing problem in the Kingdom of Cambodia. It should also be noted that according to the Secretary of State Chu Bun-eng, human trafficking in Cambodia has increased significantly, with 359 recorded cases in 2021, a more than double increase from the 155 cases recorded in 2020. Darshana Gauchan, EAC News.
World Vision Cambodia reports 99% of grandmothers have the role of primary caregiver to their young children in the family, because more than 57% of mothers between the ages of 20 to 34 have migrated to cities or elsewhere for work. This leaves the grandparents and especially grandmothers back at home taking care of their grandchildren. EAC News reporter Decca Nin has the story.
In a learning report entitled The Grandmother Inclusive Approach for Improved Child Nutrition, released on Thursday, 7th of April, World Vision reported that the increase in employment in the garment sector has caused many parents of children to migrate far from home for employment in order to earn money to support a family. As a result, the burden of caring for young children often then falls on the grandmothers, but many lack a full understanding of how to care for young children. In response to this problem, World Vision has provided training to grandmothers, which focuses on feeding and proper nutrition for children. World Vision Nutrition Technical Officer Grana Pusavi says that leaving children at home under the care of elderly can put children at risk of malnutrition, which can lead them to be underweight for their age and stunt children's physical growth, as well as lead to psychological problems due to vitamin deficiency. She said that is why we are working on this project, to see what can be done to reduce child malnutrition, as we want to see Cambodian children be productive as they grow. Gia Mari, an official from the Ministry of Health National Nutrition Program, said she recognized the need to improve the well-being of both grandmothers and children. She said through the training, grandmothers are also relieved from stress by facilitating community dialogue and building a social system to take care of the children at home when parents are not at home. The World Vision Nutrition Technical Officer added that the project underwent a trial period for 13 months, where many changes and improvements were made to the project indicators. However, it would take a long time to improve the training. In the future, she hopes the training will give more focus to raising the well-being of young children, especially children under the age of 2. She continued, the reason why we planned the Grandmother Inclusive Approach project is so that children will no longer be afflicted by illnesses, and so that their mental state could also be improved. This project intends to train grandmothers and provide them with the knowledge and good practices of taking care of children and providing good nutrition. The pilot project was conducted in Samraong Tong and Basip communes in Kampong Speu province and lasted for about 13 months with the involvement of 300 grandmothers who are the primary caregivers for children under the age of 2. The project aims to build the knowledge and skills of grandmothers to ensure the well-being of children and to reduce the stress felt by grandmothers by facilitating community dialogue and building social support systems to address issues related to changing roles in childcare. According to the outcomes of the project, children aged 6 to 23 months who were able to receive a balanced diet with adequate nutrition increased by 12%, grandmothers' awareness of proper nutrition for pregnant women increased by 9%, the number of grandmothers using nonviolent methods in children education increased by 26%, and the number of grandmothers who said that they felt high stress levels in their childcare roles decreased by 12%. A village health support group member, Sun Di, said that the training of this project has made her more aware of how to take care of herself and the children in the community. She said, I want the training to continue because it is important for grandmothers to be able to take care of their grandchildren well, and this training will make them more knowledgeable. One mother, Miss Sopip, said after her mother, who is in charge of taking care of her children, attended the training, she became calmer and began speaking more kindly to her children, which made her very happy. The 13-month pilot project by World Vision was conducted in 2 communes in Kampong Speu province, while the organization plans to extend the nutrition program to 17 other provinces and destinations in Cambodia. Dekanin, EAC News.
Since the beginning of April 2022, many Cambodian migrant workers in Thailand have been rushing back for their hometowns for the Khmer New Year, through the both legal and illegal methods, mostly through the unlocked border crossing the Ta San commune, Kamareng district, Battambang province. EAC News reporter Slaypor Kong has the story.
Sources from authority along the border have reported that a total of 455 Cambodian workers who returned home on Friday morning, including 186 women and 54 children, were quickly tested by doctors and all found to be negative for COVID-19. Separately, 12 workers were sent to the Mandalkilo Prambuan quarantine center in Sampalun district with positive tests. Of the 443 workers who displayed the correct vaccination card, 21 children aged 5 to 18 were properly educated on how to prevent the spread of COVID-19 and allowed to return home. This year, Khmer New Year will take place from 14 to 16 April. As always, many people flock back to their hometown during this time to meet their family and relatives. This year, many are expected to travel across the country, also to visit various resorts, as the royal government has decided to reopen the country and allow celebration after a 2-year hiatus brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic. Sri Pokong, EAC News.
The Phnom Penh Capital Administration has prepared a plan to ensure the safety of citizens during the upcoming Khmer New Year from the 14th to the 16th of April, so that all the citizens can have a warm, happy, orderly visit and stay in Phnom Penh. EAC News reporter Decca Nin has them all.
Speaking at the meeting of the Phnom Penh Municipal Unity Command on Tuesday, the Deputy Commissioner General and Commissioner of the Phnom Penh Municipal Police, Lieutenant General Saw Tate, said that the Joint Police Force is ready to be stationed at many important sites in Phnom Penh, especially around pagodas and the Wat Phnom area, the latter of which is the main site of Phnom Penh Songkran celebrations. These safety preparations are being made to ensure public order and social security over the holiday, to make sure that everyone can enjoy their time in Phnom Penh. The extra precautionary measures being taken will increase the effectiveness of preventing disruptive activities that can pose a threat to safety at locations like pagodas, entertainment venues, and resorts where many people will gather. The Lieutenant General confirmed that the forces of all divisions will be mobilized at full capacity in designated shifts, especially at night, to carry out thorough inspections and to ensure efficient operation. He added that a total of 564 joint forces are to be deployed to a target of 150 pagodas every day, especially around the Wat Phnom area where many people are expected to visit. In addition, all forces will be involved in preventing water fights and pilot throwing, as recommended by the Governor of Phnom Penh, Khun Sreng, because it poses a high risk of transmission of COVID-19 and can also pose various dangers and impact the image of Khmer tradition. The Phnom Penh Capital Administration is ready to host the New Year Songkran at Wat Phnom, and all 150 pagodas throughout Phnom Penh are ready to welcome the New Year celebrations, with activities such as dancing, singing, and playing traditional Khmer games. The Capital Administration is also decorating the city and colorfully lighting up the streets for this special occasion. Dekanin, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has often said Russia will not easily win the war with Ukraine due to the deepening of the Russian army into Ukraine, which allows the Ukraine side to retaliate easily. This week, 2.5 months after invading Ukraine's Kiev, Russian troops withdraw in search of a new offensive strategy, similar to how the Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen has analysed the situation. EAC News reporter Dashana Guchin has more.
Infrastructure was destroyed and corpses were strewn across the streets of Kyiv after Russian troops withdrew from the capital back to Belarus and Russia, where Moscow ordered soldiers to rearm and strategize. Ukraine's Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Maliar said on 3rd April that the entire capital of Kyiv had been liberated from invaders. Russia, however, has stepped up its military activities in the southern and eastern regions of Ukraine. Speaking in a video message sent on Thursday night, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, dressed in a khaki outfit, tells his compatriots and the world to increase sanctions on Russia while also requesting for more weapons to go to war with the Russian superpower. He said, "If everyone in the world had at least 10% of the courage that we Ukrainians have, there would be no danger to international law at all. There would be no danger to the freedom of the nations. We will spread our courage. We will start a special global campaign. We will teach the world to be not just a little bit, but full of courage like us, like Ukrainians." In the war against Ukraine, Russia has used large-scale and rapid tactics to try to destroy its enemy. The shock and awe or blitzkrieg method, which was also used by the Nazis in World War II. Such a strategy relies on the principle of momentum, in which the force of the strike continues to push forward at high speed, not allowing the enemy to have any time to gather or retaliate. Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen predicted that Russia would not be able to easily wage war on Ukraine. A veteran of war himself, The Prime Minister had said that Russia's deepening advance into Ukraine would be an opportunity for the Ukrainian army to cause a greater separation of Russian army forces. The Prime Minister spoke about this at the inauguration of National Road No. 3 on 2nd March 2022, 1 week after Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
ដល់រាបណាជាក្រឹតកម្មយោធាពេលដែលផ្សំតបនៅទល់ដែនមុនពេលចេញតណាកម្លាំងគឺវានៅណែនគឺថានៅណែននៅភូមិនេះប៉ុន្តែនៅពេលដែលចាប់ផ្ដើមចូលចេញតណាទៅកម្លាំងស្ដួយដូចទាញខ្សែអញ្ចឹងដូចទាញខ្សែអញ្ចឹងងាយណាស់នឹងធ្វើឲ្យសង្គ្រាមឆ្លងអាចវាយប្រហារកាត់ជាកង់តែម្ដងកាត់ជាកង់ខ្ញុំកំពុងគិតថាអ៊ុយក្រែនកំពុងប្រើយុទ្ធវិធីទេ
The Prime Minister commented on this matter again at the inauguration ceremony of the new ear, nose and throat building at Ang Duong Hospital on 28th March 2022.
ឥឡូវជាង1ខែហើយវាយយកអត់បានទេខ្ញុំមិនជឿថាវាយយកបានតែអត់ជឿទេហើយខ្ញុំមិនជឿថារុស្ស៊ីអាចរំលាយរដ្ឋបាលអ៊ុយក្រែនបានទេ
On 24th February, the Russian Federation launched a large-scale offensive against Ukraine in what Russia said was a demilitarization of Ukraine to protect the Donbas Republic and to ensure that Russia would not be put under NATO threat through Ukrainian territory. The attack was denounced by many UN member states, including Cambodia, as a violation of sovereignty, and in early March, the majority voted for the UN General Assembly resolution demanding Russia immediately withdraw its troops from Ukraine. Prime Minister Hun Sen has stated that wherever there is a decision related to the Russia-Ukraine war, Cambodia will vote against the use of force. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
China firmly opposes any official contact between the United States and Taiwan. Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesman Zhao Lijiang said on Thursday in response to a planned visit to Taiwan by the House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
China firmly opposes any form of official contact between the U.S. and Taiwan. As an integral part of the U.S. government, the U.S. Congress should strictly abide by the One China principle pursued by the U.S., Zhao said at a press conference in Beijing. Zhao said such a visit would severely disrupt Chinese-U.S. relations and send a serious wrong signal to the forces seeking Taiwan independence. If U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Pelosi visits Taiwan, it will seriously violate the One China principle and the provisions of the 3 China-U.S. joint communiques, seriously undermine China's sovereignty and territorial integrity, severely harm the political foundation of China-U.S. relations, and send a serious wrong signal to the Taiwan independent separatist forces. China firmly opposes this and has already lodged stern representations with the U.S. side, Zhao said. Zhao warned that China will take strong countermeasures if the U.S. continues the move, which will break its commitment. The U.S. side should honor its commitment to the One China principle and the 3 China-U.S. joint communiques, cancel the planned visit of U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Pelosi, stop its official contact with Taiwan, and fulfill its commitment of not supporting Taiwan independence. If the United States insists on having its own way, China will take strong measures in response to unswervingly defend national sovereignty and territorial integrity. All possible consequences that arise from such a visit will completely be borne by the U.S. side, said Zhao.
The UN General Assembly on Thursday, 7th of April, suspended Russia from the UN Human Rights Council over reports of the gross and systematic violations and abuses of human rights by invading Russian troops in Ukraine. The US-led push gained 93 votes in favour, while 24 countries voted no and 58 countries voted abstain. A 2/3 majority of voting members in the 193-member General Assembly in New York, absentees do not count, was needed to suspend Russia from the 47-member Geneva-based Human Rights Council. The rare decision this Assembly has taken today sends a strong signal of accountability and hopefully will help preventing and discouraging more violations of human rights, said the European Union's UN Ambassador Olaf Scholz. Speaking after the vote, Russia's Deputy UN Assembly Jenny Guzman described the move as an illegitimate and political motive step and then announced that Russia have decided to quit the Human Rights Council altogether. The Russian Federation made its decision about ending or suspending its rights, its membership in the Human Rights Council before the end of the term on the 7th of April of this year. Kuzmin said, "In today's conditions, the Council is in fact monopolised by one group of states who use their short-term aims. We reject the untruth allegations against us based on the staged events of widely circumcised facts." Mr. President, based on everything I've said, we would like to put this resolution to a vote and call on those present here to really consider your decision and to vote against the attempt by Western countries and their allies to destroy the existing human rights architecture. In a couple of minutes, you will have a chance to prove that you are not an indifferent bystander. All you need to do is press the yes button and to save the Human Rights Council and many lives around the world and Ukraine. On the other hand, pressing no means pulling a trigger and means the red dot on the screen. Red as the blood of innocent lives lost. And this image of a red bloody dots on these screens will stay that you will and all of us as long as memory does not fail us. Think about it. Thank you. We do not submit your resignation after you are fired, Ukraine UN Ambassador Sergei Kalista said. Under these circumstances, such a hasty move at the General Assembly, which forces countries to choose sides, will aggravate the division among member states, intensify the confrontation between the parties concerned. It is like adding fuel to fire, which is not conducive to the de-escalation of conflicts and even less to advice in peace talks. China UN Ambassador Zhang Zhong. Russia was in the second year of its third-year term. Under Thursday's resolution, the General Assembly could have later agreed to end the suspension. But that cannot happen now. Russia has quit the Council, just as the United States did in 2018 over what it called chronic bias against Israel and lack of reform.
The decision to suspend the Russian Federation, which the EU and its member states have supported today, implements the 2006 General Assembly resolution establishing the Human Rights Council, which foresees suspension of members that commit gross and systematic violations of human rights. Suspension is necessary to uphold the integrity of the Human Rights Council, the authority of the General Assembly, and the credibility of the UN human rights system. The rare decision this Assembly has taken today sends a strong signal of accountability and hopefully will help preventing and discouraging more violations of human rights.
Many thanks, Mr. President. We're very sorry to take the floor and interrupt the flow of statements, but we would like to seek urgent clarification from the Russian delegation as to what precisely they just said in their statement. This General Assembly voted just a few moments ago to suspend them from the Human Rights Council, and that is now done. But it seemed to us that they were suggesting that they were also withdrawing from the Human Rights Council, which has a different effect.
Now for a look at the news making international headlines Wednesday the 6th of April.
Russia is getting more heat after the atrocities of recent reports on civilian killings, torture, and rape in Baca came to light. Russia vehemently denied the allegations, but the international community is now in an uproar. The U.S. Ambassador to the United States, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, said that no one can be a shield for Russia's aggression toward Ukraine. She pushed for a vote to suspend Russia from the Geneva-based UN Human Rights Council. The vote will likely be on 7th of April, and a two-thirds majority is needed. In the meantime, Britain urged G7 and NATO nations to ban Russian ships from their ports and agree on a timetable to phase out oil and gas imports from Russia. British Foreign Secretary Liz Truss said that the existing sanctions had frozen $350 billion of Russian money and made over 60% of its foreign currency reserves unavailable. These coordinated sanctions are pushing the Russian economy back to the Soviet era.
International Journalist Protection NGO Article 19 said on Tuesday the 5th of April that the government of the Mexican president Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador has been deadly for journalists. During this term, the current government has accumulated 33 murdered journalists. In spite of the authorities' denial, this is the most violent period against the press we've registered, said Article 19, according to Article 19, an organisation that promotes freedom of expression. Under the last two Mexican presidents, Enrique Peña Nieto and Felipe Calderón, 19 and 26 journalists were murdered respectively. So far, in 2022, the organisation has documented the murders of 8 journalists in the country.
At a Hong Kong public hospital mortuary, funeral director Hattis Chung claimed the body of a COVID-19 victim on behalf of his family who live in mainland China. The family could not arrive in time due to quarantine measures. Chance, accompanied by his colleagues in full protective gear, opened the coffin and spread pepper money on the body as part of a traditional ritual before sending it to a cremation site. I feel heartbroken. Chan, 31, who has been working round the clock to help bereaved families. As the global financial hub barrels a surge in COVID-19 death that is overwhelming its funeral parlors. Since the 5th wave of coronavirus hit the former British colony this year, it has reported more than 1 million infections and nearly 8,000 deaths. Scenes of bodies stacked in emergency room next to patients have shocked many as places in mortuary runs out. I've never seen so many bodies that they have been piled up together, said another funeral director Long Chung, 37, who has been organizing about 40 funerals in March, up from roughly 15 in an average month. I've never seen the family members been so upset, so disappointed, he said. The surge in COVID-19 death has resulted in a long wait for documents including death certificates to be processed, according to Chung. Traditional wood coffins are running short. Also in demand are the traditional paper replica of items, from cars to home and other personal effects, Burna's offering at Chinese funeral for use in the afterlife. Much of the delay is blamed on a logjam in transport from the neighboring southern Chinese city of Shenzhen, which supplies many of the items but is now fighting its own outbreak of COVID-19. China supplies more than 95% of the 250 to 300 coffins Hong Kong needs each day, authorities said. It received more than 3,517 coffins during the period from March 14 to 26, after the government of the Chinese Rule City coordinated with the mainland authorities. The Sikh crematorium now run almost around the clock to get through nearly 300 cremations a day, or double the usual figure, and public mortuaries have been expanded to accommodate 4,600 bodies from 1,350 earlier, authorities said. Non-government body Forget the Knot has partnered with an eco-friendly coffin maker Life Art Asia to donate 300 such coffins and 1,000 boxes of preservative to 6 public hospitals. Each coffin is made of a cardboard with recycled wood fiber and can take a weight up to 200 kilograms. Placed in coffin or body bags, the powder, like preservative, turns to gas to keep the body in its natural state for up to 5 days. We are in the eye of the storm, said Life Art Asia Chief Executive Wilson Tong, and in the midst of this storm, we are trying to provide a moment of respite.
Now for a look at the news-making international headlines this Thursday, the 7th of April.
The Czech Republic has become the first NATO country to send tanks to Ukraine, including T-72 and armored infantry vehicles. This delivery is understood as a gift by NATO allies following President Zelensky's plea for help for more than a month. Several BVP-1 infantry fighting vehicles, howitzer artillery pieces, and more than a dozen T-72 tanks were loaded on a train bound for Slovakia, where they are expected to head on to Ukraine. In the meanwhile, the U.S. Army tanks, fighting vehicles, and other equipment arrived in Denmark en route to Poland. For the next 9 months, they will be used to support the deployment of U.S. Armored Brigade in Europe and part of an effort called Atlantic Resolve, which involves the routine pre-planned rotation of U.S. Army units to Europe. There is a fear that NATO will soon be dragged into the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war that was started on the 24th of February.
The wall of the villa belonging to Russian state TV host Vladimir Solov in northern Italy was vandalized and spray painted with the words "killer" and "no war." The red paint was also poured into the residence swimming pool. A fire broke out in early hours at the second villa near the lake with limited damage. The houses are part of the properties worth a total of €8 million, $8.7 million, owned by Solov in Italy, which was seized after the EU released the list of censored orchids following the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Scientists in Chile have unearthed a rare symmetry with a well-preserved bone of ancient flying reptile that roamed the Atacama Desert more than 100 million years ago. The scientists determined the remains belonged to pterosaur, flying creature with long wingspan that lived alongside dinosaurs and fed by filtering water through their long, thin teeth, similar to flamingos. Most pterosaur bones that are found are flattened and broken, but these newly discovered bones are well preserved. Jonathan Alacon, who led a group of scientists to discovery, said this discovery will not only help them study anatomy, but also their habit and how they live. The find was made 65 kilometers away from another site where other pterosaur remains were found. This discovery supports scientists' hypothesis that pterosaurs were once widespread in northern Chile.
Now for a look at the news making international headlines this Friday the 8th of April.
On Thursday, 7th April, the U.S. confirmed Ketanji Brown Jackson as the first Black woman to serve on the country's highest court. This milestone is a victory for President Joe Biden, whose campaign promise included a broader range of diversity in the federal judiciary. Jackson, a 51-year-old appeals court judge with 9 years of experience on the federal bench, was confirmed 53-47, mostly along party lines, but with 3 Republican votes. Senators Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, and Mitt Romney crossed the party lines for the confirmation. Presiding was Vice President Kamala Harris, the first Black woman to reach the high office. Of the 115 people who have served on the Supreme Court since its 1789 founding, all but 3 have been white. Jackson will become the 6th woman justice ever, and for the first time, 4 women justices will be serving together. Jackson will take the place of 83-year-old Stephen Breyer when the court's current term ends, usually in late June. She'll be sworn in after that.
A glimpse of peace to the 7-year war was seen when Yemen's president delegated power to the President Council and dismissed his deputy on Thursday the 7th of April in Saudi Arabia's move to strengthen the anti-Houthis alliance amid the UN-led efforts to revive negotiations for peace. Yemen's warning signs is a major breakthrough against last week on 2-month truce that began on Saturday, the first since 2016. The deal eased the coalition blockade to areas held by the Houthis, who ousted Hadi's government in the capital, Sana'a, in late 2014. Hadi took the helm of the crumbling state a decade ago in the Gulf-backed transition plan after protests that brought down the President Ali Abdullah Salah, who was later killed. Analysts say the new council aims to unify anti-Houthis ranks by giving more parties a seat at the table. With Hadi effectively out of the equation and his controversial deputy dismissed, the hope is that Houthis may also be more honourable. Houthis chief negotiator Mohammed Al-Salam criticised the move as farce.
Flooding caused by torrential rain in Colombia's Antioquia province has killed at least 11 people, local authorities said on Thursday, 7 April. Aníbal Gaviria, the governor of Antioquia province, said between 10 to 14 people were still missing. In addition to the death, 10 people are injured, the statement added. The flooding occurred late on Wednesday, April 6, when rains in Antioquia Abriacoy municipality flooded a camp at the El Porvenir mine, as well as part of the mining operation. Provincial Disaster Management Agency DAGRAN said flooding is common during Colombia's wetter season, while landslides are frequent due to the mountainous terrain and poor or informal construction of houses.
If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of our platforms and channels. The EAC News app, YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eacnews.asia. Join me, Andrew Barnes-Roberts, and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favorite channels. EAC News, Cambodia.
Teenager Anna Davis won the Augusta National Women's Amateur Golf Tournament on Sunday the 2nd of April. The 16-year-old high school sophomore from California, who was part of the Junior Solheim Cup and the Junior Ryder Cup teams, ended the final round with a 3 under 69, meaning she finished at 1 under at 215. Davis finished ahead of Latana Stone, who had looked certain to win, but fell short in the final 2 holes in Augusta National Golf Club. The LSU junior had a 2-shot lead with 2 holes to play after the 6th birdie of the ground on the 16th, but she 3-putted for a double bogey on the 17th and then missed on the 15-foot par putt on the 18th and would have forced the playoff. Ingrid Limbard joined her LSU teammate in a tie for the second after securing the best final round with a 4 under of 68. Florida State Beatrice Wallen, who was tied with the Stone at the start of the final round, went on to tie for the 4th with a 73, alongside Bernadetta Moresco 71 and Amory Avery 72. Thanks for joining us. Russian Danny Medvedev will be out of action for 1 to 2 months as he goes under the knife to fix a hernia problem, the world number 2 said on Saturday the 2nd of April, casting a doubt over his participation over next month's French Open.
Medvedev, who won the US Open last year and lost in the Australian Open final to Rafael Nadal in January, will likely miss out on this month's Monte Carlo Masters as well as the ATP 1000 events in Madrid and Rome in May. The last months, I have been playing with a small hernia. Together with my team, I have decided to have a small procedure done to fix the problem. World number 2 Medvedev wrote on Twitter, "I will likely be out for the next 1 to 2 months and will work hard to be back on court soon. Thanks for all the support." Medvedev's bid to reclaim the world's number 1 ranking fell short on Thursday as the Russian lost 7-6, 6-3 to Poland's Hubert Hurkacz in the Miami Open quarterfinals. The French Open will be held in Paris from May 22 to June 5th.
Tiger Woods is around 80% healthy as he continues to recover from the hand and hip injuries, but will be put advice of the doctors to one side and it could tee up this week's at the Masters.
Tiger Mania returned to Augusta National in full force on Monday, 4th April, as a cagey Tiger Woods kept the golf world guessing on whether he will be in the Masters field. The Woods watch moved into overdrive as hordes of spectators flooded into Augusta National to catch a glimpse of the 15-time major winner, who has kept fans in suspense, saying on Sunday his Masters participation will be a game-time decision. While Woods gave nothing away on Monday, fans will not have to wait much longer to know his decision, with the 46-year-old scheduled to hold a news conference on Tuesday, along with the publishing of Thursday's first round tee times. After 2 years of COVID-19 restrictions that limited the number of spectators allowed on the ground, the galleries were back, and so was the unmistakable Augusta National buzz, amplified by the sight of Woods working the fairways. The car crushed 14 months ago had threatened to take Woods' right leg and left him in hospital for 3 weeks and then confined to a hospital-type bed at home for 3 months seems a distant misfortune on a picture-perfect Monday. Playing 9 holes during an afternoon practice alongside good friends Fred Couples and Justin Thomas, a relaxed Woods did not have a look of a man struggling to make a decision. Rather, he had the self-assured air of someone who had made up his mind to be on the first tee come Thursday. While Woods was tight-lipped, one of his player partners is certain of what will happen on Thursday. "I hope everything keeps going Tuesday and Wednesday, and I'm sure he's going to tee up Thursday," said Couples. Woods has always maintained that he enters every event with a mindset to win it, and his fellow golfers says not even coming back from a career-threatening injury has changed that approach. If Woods, who was noticeably limping at the end of 9 holes, does commit to play, it would be his first official tournament since defending his title at the 2020 Masters, played in November due to COVID-19.
Ethiopian Dessa Jalmissa produced a burst of speed in the final strings to claim the biggest title of his career with a victory in the Paris Marathon in cold conditions.
Gelmisa covered the 42.195 kilometers in 2 hours, 5 minutes, and 7 seconds, 14 seconds outside his personal best, as he finished ahead of 2021 Chicago Marathon winner and compatriot Seifu Tura. Tura finished 3 seconds behind the 24-year-old Gelmisa, whose previous title came at the Porto Marathon in 2019. Morhad Amdouni finished third by setting a new French record in 2 hours and 5 minutes and 22 seconds, improving the mark set by Benoit Zerchewski in 2003 by more than a minute. Kenya's Judith Jeptum won the women's race by beating the course record in 2 hours, 19 minutes, and 48 seconds. The conditions were tough, but I'm happy with what I did today, Jeptum said. The race started shortly before 8 a.m. local time with a temperature just above 0 degrees Celsius. Jeptum was in a league of her own, surging ahead of her rivals before the 30-kilometer mark, and never looked back as she beat the previous best Paris mark set by Kenyan Purity Rionoripo in 2017 by 67 seconds. Ethiopians Fantu Jima and Besu Sado were second and third respectively, more than 3 minutes off the pace. In the men's elite wheelchair race, Frenchman Julien Cassoli became the first person to win the category for a 5th time.
Cuba announced this week that its top fighters will join the professional boxing circuit following decades of shying away from the sport after former leader Fidel Castro banned sports for pay following his leftist 1959 revolution.
The Domadores de Cuba team will participate this year in several professional leagues after signing a contract with the Mexican company Golden Ring Promotions, state television reported on Monday, April 4th. The president of the Cuban Boxing Federation, Alberto Puig, said that several Cuban boxers will debut in a professional program in Mexico in May. Puig said 4 Cubans had already signed their contracts for 3 years. During the first stage, a team of 5 to 6 boxers would participate. Cuban sports officials said boxers would receive 80% of the compensation for winning fights, while 15% will go to trainers and 5% to their medical staff. In a gym in Old Havana, boxers drenched in sweat celebrated the news while throwing punches. I think the migration of Cuban boxers is stopped with the Cuban team. Trainer Alberto Gonzalez told Reuters on Tuesday, April 5th. The country's economic situation is dire and it is a way to help the boxers' families financially, he said. The Domadores de Cuba team had competed since 2014 in the World Series of Boxing, a semi-professional tournament where athletes box without head protectors. Cuba won 3 of the 5 events in which it participated until 2018. Cuba has won 41 gold medals in amateur boxing at the Olympic Games since 1972, although several of its top-tier boxers have defected in recent years to participate in professional events in the United States.
The Lusail Stadium, the host of the venue Men's Football World Cup final, has been purposely built for the 2022 tournament. With a capacity of 80,000, it will host 6 group matches before being one of the chosen stadiums for each knockout round, culminating in the final itself. The stadium's bowl shape, as its intricate design, is a nod of a decorative motifs found on bowls across the Arab world. The World Cup draws takes place in Doha Exhibition and Conference Centre later Friday, 1st of April, where the 29 qualified teams and 3 more will qualify later this year. Will learn which groups they are in, all with the hope of reaching the final and gracing the turf of the flagship venue of the 2022 World Cup. There's a huge enthusiasm ahead of Thursday's Europa League quarter-final leg between Frankfurt and former European champions Barcelona. The German side captain Sebastian Rode said on Wednesday the 6th of April.
Up until now, we have been playing an outstanding Europa League season, unbeaten so far, and so we hope it won't be the end of the quarterfinal, added coach Oliver Glasner during a news conference in Frankfurt. The Frankfurt coach, who is Austrian, also said his team would not go into this game thinking how we can stop Barcelona offensively and how we can achieve a 0-0 draw. We will always be looking for opportunities simply because it's a lot more fun. We obviously want to keep up the motivation, yet not get over-motivated unmotivated in some stupid battles, said Rode. Frankfurt will host Barcelona at Deutsche Bank Park Stadium at 9 p.m. on Thursday. The second leg will be held on April 14. I think the entire club, the team, and also the city, the fans deserve this game. So far, we have been playing an outstanding Europa League season, unbeaten so far, so we hope it won't be the end of the quarterfinals. Eintracht Frankfurt captain Sebastian Rode said, "That's right, the euphoria surrounding this game is huge, and we need to keep a cool head. Especially for many new players, the atmosphere will be something special. We also expect the fans to come up with something, as was the case in recent years. We obviously want to keep up the motivation, yet not get over-motivated in some stupid battles."
Abdullah Mustafa was a 10-year-old football fanatic when he lost his leg in an accident.
Now 26, Mustafa is proud that he never let his disability bring his soccer dreams to a halt. He is a member of the Pyramid soccer team for amputees and wishes more football clubs in Egypt would allow Suit to have a soccer league for talents like his. For Mustafa, nothing is impossible. His injury left him depressed and at home for only 2 months, but after that he decided he will pursue to follow his dreams. He joined his team 2 years ago and says he is happy to see more football clubs establishing teams for amputees. "Some people used to tell me that I'm wasting time, which was the only thing that annoyed me. Some people were encouraging me and others said this would be difficult for me," he said. But he insists that criticisms only pushed him forward. "I love a challenge whenever I hear an opinion that I don't like or something negative. I turn it into something positive. I work on myself more to be great," he said.
Daniel Ricciardo will auction his Australian Grand Prix helmet to raise money for the flood relief efforts after this weekend's race, he explains Thursday the 7th of April. The helmet, designed by Australian artist Recco Rini, will be sold and processed given to Red Cross. It has been a long-awaited return to its home circuit for Australian Ricciardo as the World Championship circuit comes to Melbourne for the first time since 2020. The race was called off at the 11th hour because the COVID-19 pandemic first took grip on Australia. The 32-year-old 8 times Grand Prix winner last race in Melbourne. His first Renault was effectively ended in his first few seconds when he lost his front end in the trackside grass, leaving him even more a sense of longing. Now in his second season at McLaren, Ricciardo has a good reason to question the competitiveness of his car after finishing 14th at the season opener in Bahrain and being forced to retire in Saudi Arabia. That is a stark contrast from the former team Red Bull, who already got their first win of the season through the World Champion Max Verstappen. Ricciardo, who twice finished 4th in Albert Park with Red Bull, accepts that there will always be questions about his decision to walk away from the team at the end of the 2018 season.
It's all going, so everything that's auctioned will go to Red Cross for flood relief. So trying to just help rebuild communities that have been affected. So trying to just I guess with obviously Heineken, McLaren, and use our platform for good. That's one way, and obviously Rico's put this together really nicely.
So I went to see Robert in the Australian Zoo, which was great. Great meeting him and great meeting his family. I mean, I grew up, seeing Steve going into the wild and catching alligators and crocodiles and snakes and stuff. So it was always part of my childhood, and being there now again after so many years and seeing it in person was really nice.
Japanese snowboarder Ira Iwabuchi landed the world's first frontside triple 1260 by a woman at an event at Crans, Montana, Switzerland this week.
She was shortly followed into the record books by Canadian Laurie Bluin, who landed the second ever women's cab triple 1260. Alongside Austrian Anna Gasser, Iwabuchi and Bluin are the only women to have landed a triple jump of any kind in competition. Iwabuchi and Bluin's feats took place at the 9 ski and snowboard progression season in Crans, Montana, Switzerland. 20-year-old Japanese rider Iwabuchi, a multiple X Games medalist in big air, first tried the front triple 12 at the 2022 Beijing Olympics, but wasn't able to land it there. "Ever since Anna did her cab triple, I knew I had to do a triple," Iwabuchi said. "After I came so close at the Olympics, I really wanted to try again at the 9s.
Legend Midtown hosted the biggest premiere on Tuesday night, the 6th of April, for the award-winning film White Building by Coverage Ning, starring Piseth Chun, who won the Rozzoni Award for the Best Actor in Venice, Italy last September 2021.
សូមឲ្យដួងព្រលឹងនិងវត្ថុស័ក្តិសិទ្ធិទាំងអស់ដែលបានតាមថែរក្សាកូនចៅគ្រប់ទីកន្លែងគ្រប់ពេលសូមឲ្យកូនចៅជួបតែសំណាងល្អនិងជៀសផុតពីគ្រោះថ្នាក់ចង្រៃ
The premiere was attended by key people from the music, art, and film industries, as well as the U.S. Ambassador to Cambodia, Patrick Murphy, and the French Ambassador to Cambodia, Jacques Palais. The Legend Cinema's marketing manager, Nicolas Devaney, said that he is happy to support Khmer films. Legend devoted all halls at Midtown to the film's premiere, along with performances by Clap Your Hands artists and a Q&A session with the cast and crew. He said that he is proud to see a Khmer film made by a Khmer team doing so well on the international stage. He said he has seen the film twice and loved it both times, and he hopes Khmer audiences give a chance to this one-of-a-kind movie. White Building is Kavik Niang's first feature film. He started this project in 2016 and took 5 years to complete it. He said that he wanted to create a souvenir of the White Building landmark before it was torn down. He explained that it was a challenge to work with up-and-coming actors at first because they were not used to working in front of cameras. But he said he is happy and proud of the work they have all done, as well as the fact that the film got international recognition.
International festivals do not really know or haven't really heard about Cambodia. So for me, I'm super stoked about getting recognitions. I never got formal film training with standards. The films was made with my friends and our passion. So when we got selected for Venice, which is one of the biggest film festivals in the world, I was very proud and excited for the international community to see the film in Cambodia.
A big fan of Kavik is one of the film's producers, Brendan Hashimoto, who saw Kavik's talent and potential through his short films and was motivated to help him create his first feature-length film.
Or this person has to make a feature, I'm going to do whatever I can to support that because that needs to happen. You can see the way he produces the film and directs them, there's just something, a way that he pulls out both the performances from the actors and the way he decides to pace and edit the films to really draw very interesting emotion and thoughts that to make people think about these and empathize with the characters in his films.
White Building is playing at all cinemas in Cambodia starting 7th of April 2022. Nekanin EAC News.
And finally, a husband and wife team with disabilities in Tako province have succeeded in agriculture by growing organic vegetables and sharing their knowledge with other local people who have changed from discrimination against persons with disabilities to seeing the husband and wife as a model family in the community.
29-year-old Am Sopir is a farmer who lives in Angkon village, Pachsa commune, Kahandai district in Takao province. She was born with an arm defect while her husband has a form of scoliosis. Even though she and her husband have disabilities, she said she has never given in to any difficulties she faced and has worked hard to develop herself into a model farmer in the community by growing organic vegetables and sharing her agricultural knowledge with others. She said that before she started farming, her life was very difficult because she did not have a job, despite applying for many positions.
When my husband and I got married, we could not migrate abroad to work outside because we faced a lot of discrimination due to our disabilities.
Sophie and her husband worked hard to support their family through farming. She first started growing food for the family after receiving a plot of land from an NGO and expanded the cultivation until she was able to start selling vegetables to other villagers.
At that time, we first thought about growing vegetables for the family. But when others saw my family growing vegetables and eating them, the villagers around my house began turning to me to buy my vegetables, and I started growing more vegetables.
In 2020, Sophia joined World Vision Maize to Protect by growing organic vegetables and selling them to the farming community. Through this project, she developed her abilities in cultivation, planted many kinds of crops, received agricultural material, and also gained techniques for caring for natural crops.
Once we joined the project, we were guided to various training courses. I was able to distribute agricultural materials to my family, so we expanded our vegetable growing. When we grow vegetables, we can have a life that may not be prosperous but is easier, and the villagers in my community were able to see the ability of my family.
She continued that in her farm there are many kinds of vegetables such as cabbage, soybean, and yellow watermelon, which can provide her with an income of 40 to 50,000 riel per day. Through her struggle and success, Sophia was able to win the title of Outstanding Farmer in the community.
Do not pity the disabled, but value them, so that they have the courage to struggle like me. Even though my family has disabilities, I can grow my own vegetables and live without migrating abroad to earn money.
Currently, Sophia is a leader in sharing knowledge about agricultural production to the people living in her community. She is also a beacon of encouragement to persons with disabilities. She wants to help unemployed people in the community turn to growing organic vegetables like her. Sophia's husband, Paul Sophie, expressed his happiness and praise to his wife, who struggled in farming and wished to share her knowledge with others.
For me, I'm happy when she wants to do something that will make a difference in the family, as well as share it with other people who have not done anything. Now let's have a look at the weather and what you can expect over the next few days. Thanks for watching the weekly Roundup here on the EAC News Channel. More from the EAC News team in the daily Roundup Monday night at 8 p.m. I'll see you then.